Hello, and welcome to the How Do I Create and Facilitate a Roundtable. Is one of the only recursive roundtables that we will probably ever host. But I'm super excited to have a conversation with these wonderful folks about how we do this and your experiences with them, why you think they might be a powerful way to teach and learn. And I do want to sort of get us started in thinking about how we can create them and to sort of better use them for our own learning purposes. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Ben Wilkoff. I'm Director of Personalized Professional Learning in Denver Public Schools. And yeah, this is my 15th roundtable of the year. But this is the first one where we're actually just talking about how we do them. So this is going to be a little bit different, but I'd love to have everybody just kind of introduce themselves and like what you see as the value of a roundtable hangout. Sarah, I'm going to throw it to you. Go.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I am the technology liaison at John Hanson French Immersion in Oxon Hill, Maryland, and also a technology ELA teacher. And roundtables, I feel that they're very important because they allow everyone to share their story and share their knowledge on various topics. So I think that it's very important to get a diverse view of several different opinions on given topics, and that helps provide a more holistic picture. So thank you so much for having me.
Nice. All right, Jess, what do you got?
I'm Jessica Raleigh. I'm a personalized learning field manager in Denver Public Schools, and I'm really excited about roundtables because I think it's really great. Like Sarah said, it's a lot of different viewpoints, and I love kind of hearing what the needs are, and I think through hearing those needs, then we kind of figure out what are some other supports that we can provide. And we've done a few spin-off roundtables, my teammates and I, and it's a really great way to kind of reach more of our teachers and our schools that we support. Since we can't drive all over the city to reach them, when they have needs, we can kind of push things out that way and get them to jump on board and get involved asking questions that way too. So.
Nice. I like that a lot, and I like the idea that they are spin-off roundtables, and somehow that you are spinning off of something. But I like that a lot. Chris, what do you got?
My name is Chris Moore. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Littleton, Colorado, and this coming year I'll be a technology coach as well. I'm here to learn and just fire off a bunch of questions. I'm definitely interested in this kind of thing, and I just came here to learn and start a little trouble.
Start a little trouble.
Yeah.
What kind of trouble are you looking to get into?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. We haven't got to that point yet.
I like it. All right. Joining us, and I don't have a lot of context for you. So where are you in the world, and what is your interest in Hangouts and Roundtables?
I'm in Lindsborg, Kansas. I am the director of student learning in a public school here called Smoky Valley. In my position, I also do a lot of technology training, and I also get to teach a couple classes. I teach a chemistry class at the high school level and then a personal leadership class. And I really want to learn how to use Google Hangouts, honestly, to facilitate study groups with my chemistry kids in the evenings, because a lot of times that's when they have trouble. And I don't want them calling my home number, and it's always, I want some kind of electronic media that allows me to do this more effectively, and also help our teachers when they need it, but I really want it to help our kids more than our teachers at this point. Not that I don't want to help teachers.
I know we would never accuse you of that. So, well, thank you so much, because I like the idea that we actually have a lot of different perspectives and levels of expertise and things like that. Ooh, Chris, is there a kid behind you?
There is. That's my son Avery.
Avery.
And my daughter Kira.
Oh, look at that! It's just beautiful, is what it is. So I love the idea of, and this is illustrating one of the points of Hangouts, is that you can do them at any time, right? And any place. So that is all very, very good. One of the places where I wanted to start today was actually kind of going through where roundtables have been and those kinds of things, and then kind of talk through them. So one of the things that I have really tried to capitalize on is making a low point of entry. Like we have the tools at our disposal, Hangouts and Google Plus and things like that. But for the most part, people are not sort of typically like, oh, I know how to set up an event, or I know how to create something that then they can share out and things like that. So how do you make that barrier to entry as low as possible? And so I'm actually going to do a quick screen share and go through the process in which I actually use every single time I set up a roundtable. So I hope that makes sense to do. And now we get the infinite scope here of the roundtable itself. And so what I thought I would do is actually the link that we created with a lot of ooh, that's not what I want to do. Here, I'm just going to make this super duper big on the screen. Whoa! The link that we made that allowed for folks to kind of create their own roundtables very, very easily and quickly is just bit.ly/create roundtable. And if somebody can figure out how to put it into the Showcase app inside of the Hangout, and then it's like all captured and everything like that. But if you go to bit.ly/create, then it takes you to this form. And I actually created my own little one, so it's create roundtable Ben, because the first part of it is all of the demographic information. So my name, my role, like where I'm at, and then these ones are pretty important. Your Google Plus profile link, email address, and your Twitter profile link. So I go through and I actually just write all of these kinds of things out. Now, what I thought would be kind of interesting for just like these 5 minutes when we're talking about how to create one is actually doing a planning the roundtable that we are currently in. We're already doing a recursive roundtable, so I thought, hey, why don't I create the planning document that is actually happening right now? And so what these questions are is, here, I can kind of zoom in. I don't know if it zooms in. Do you guys see the zoom in when I go like this? Or does it look all crazy?
It's not zooming in.
Oh, that's less fun. And so what we get, though, is you get to call your roundtable something, and I generally like to do questions, right? So how do you create and facilitate a roundtable hangout? What is the audience for this roundtable? And I just end up putting that in. And what we realized, actually, over the course of doing the first 10 or so, is that people wanted a hashtag, so I just added this one in. So the hashtag for this roundtable is roundtable. And then you get to sort of think about, well, what is the background information that we might need? And then the reason why we ask for sort of the start time and end time is actually if you just put it together like this, you can choose, oops, it's not August 1st quite yet. Oh, no, it is August 1st. Man, how did that happen? And then, you know, choosing the start time and end time. And what this actually is going to do is it will actually create an event for this roundtable on our collaborative calendar. And that was something that was really important, to be able to see all of the different roundtables that we have at our disposal. And you just need to make sure that your starting and ending time are, you know, that the ending time is after the starting time. So I'm copying and pasting like the purpose and oops, I like the essential questions. So who should you invite to the roundtable? How do you promote a roundtable? How do you facilitate a discussion? And all those kinds of things. You know, to me, those are really important as you're thinking about, you know, what are the questions that you really want to tackle as a part of the conversation. And then the last one is, what questions do you want other people that are on the video to actually answer when they are in the planning document? And so you keep on going through, and all you have to do then is make 2 more things. So after you answered all the questions, then you actually create the Hangout itself. And so in Google Plus, so I'm just going to use the one that we have here, but if you want to create a Hangout from scratch, you end up going over to your Google Plus, and going over to Hangouts, and they have this super weird like dichotomy of the different kinds of Hangouts to use. So you have your Hangouts on Air or your regular video Hangouts, and the one that we always want is the Hangouts on Air. And from this page, you can actually see all of the different Hangouts that are happening right now, or you can start a Hangout on Air. And it's misleading because you're going to click Start a Hangout on Air, which kind of leads you to believe like it's happening right now. But then you actually put in the later button, and you can choose like what time you had put into the form itself. But if you go through all of this and you just type in, you know, the name of it and what you want your description to be, and you put the same time that you used on your on the form itself, then it will go through and create the Hangout itself. And so all you would have to do then is say, yes, I have created it. But if you haven't, it'll actually walk you through all of the steps that I just showed in a series of animated GIFs. So it'll walk through each one of those, and it'll walk you through, and it says, oh, and look, there is your link, and you can grab it and paste it in. And then the last thing is setting up a badge. And the reason why we do this is so that people can get credit for the work that they've done, whether they took part on the video or if they took part on the just in viewing it. And so what I always do is, rather than saying yes, because then it's just going to ask me for the badge link, I say not yet, and then it walks me through, and it actually gives me all of the links that I need. So we've been using Peer-to-Peer University, and we'll talk about that probably in a little bit. But we've been using Peer-to-Peer University as a really great way of creating badges. And so it's a free account, and you sign in, and then all you would have to do is, again, create that badge. And so what I do is pretty typically call it Project Roundtable, and then whatever the topic is. And it's actually Project Roundtable Session 50. And this one is the Roundtable on Roundtables. And then I actually give you the description right here. So this badge is given to those who reflect upon this individual roundtable. And then the criteria is right here. So you view the roundtable, and I like to just number them like that. Boop, 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 boop. And I pop in my link. And I actually like to use, those of you who don't use a clipboard manager, I find it super valuable to be able to copy and paste multiple things at once. So my favorite is called Clipboard History, but it lets me see all of the things that I've copied and pasted forever and ever and ever and ever, because I copy and paste a lot of things. And the only other thing that you have to do is select an image. So I had already created a badge image, but in the form itself, it actually walks you through using a open badge designer, and then it tells you, hey, upload the badge, and then it'll ask you to preview it, and you say publish this sucker, and then that's really the last step, because it'll give you your new link, which you put into the wonderful where it says what is your badge or credit link, and then you get this lovely GIF of Kip doing the yes from Napoleon Dynamite, and then when you submit, what it's going to do is it'll put it on the Roundtable Google Calendar, which will put the event out for anybody who follows that calendar, and they've added it to their own Google Calendar and things like that. But it will also then create a Google Doc, which will be emailed to you. And so, as long as you got your email address right on the on the form, and so we can check out the Roundtable calendar, and hopefully at some point, once it's done doing the thing, it will show up for us as a new Google Doc. And so since I can see the other side of this, so I'm just going to view the responses because I was fiddling around with it. Boop, boop, boop. So these are all of the roundtables that have been submitted, which is super nice to see. And so what we get is our lovely Google Doc that now is the this is the planning document. And what's great about this is it has all of the information. It has everything that you put into the form. And my favorite part, or I should say one of my favorite parts, is actually going through and just making sure that everything looks good, and then I start sharing it like crazy. And that's what I want to actually focus on, is how do you facilitate, how do you start gathering an audience, and those kinds of things. But that was like a really quick, maybe too quick, overview of the conversation and sort of how you go through the step-by-step process of creating a roundtable. So bit.ly/create roundtable. And if you want me to create your own custom link for that, we can do that as well, so that your demographic information comes up automatically anytime you want to submit a roundtable. But it'll create this document, and it will send it over to you as you go through, and it puts it on the event calendar. You see it said it sent the email, and I was just impatient, so I had to go into the spreadsheet. But this is the email that it says, and so it says, go through and update all of your information, which is a lot of fun to do. And all you have to do is make sure that everybody knows where your document is and your event, and that's really all there is to it on the creation side, because you get to kind of walk yourself through. But I guess what I would like to know from all of you is, what questions do you have around the creation side of things, thinking through what topics you would want to create, and really, on the structure of a Hangout. Like, what are the considerations that you have thought about, or what are the things that you do when you're thinking about, okay, this is going to be the Hangout that I want to do, or the roundtable that I want to think about. So I'm going to throw that question out to you guys. What do you want to talk about within the creation side of the Hangout?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start. I use Google Hangouts a lot. Hangouts on Air a lot. For video tutorials that I do. I haven't really used it as much for a roundtable, but I am very excited about the possibilities. I know that in the early days, I was trying to, of me doing these tutorials, I was trying to get people in on them as well, so that they could share their questions and their comments on video. But it seems like quite a few people kind of shied away from that. So instead, I enabled the Q&A feature, and people were able to chime in with questions that way. But I'm really excited about doing my first roundtable, which I haven't yet done. But these are great tips. I would be really excited to use them.
And so when you're thinking about the ways in which you have used Hangouts, how would you describe sort of the difference between what you're currently doing, which I've seen a lot of the videos that you've made, and the way in which sort of we're structuring roundtables, which maybe have a different focus?
Yeah, roundtables, I would say, would be more so for collaboration, for people sharing ideas, things of that nature. Whereas the solo ones I've been doing, they haven't been very round at all. They've just kind of been me talking about how to do a specific thing. So so I would be interested in using Roundtable, because I could see the purpose for both, like as a tutorial walkthrough, or even a virtual office hours with students, like Fred was saying. But roundtables, I see that more so as people offering different views around a specific topic. So there's definitely a use for both.
So Jessica, you've done a number of these, and I'm interested in how you've come up with the different topics, the different things in which you want to talk about, and then sort of the questions you want to ask the audience, and sort of those essential questions. What's the process that you've been going through to kind of think about those?
A lot of it really just comes from things that are coming up with the teachers in the schools that we support. So when we end up getting asked to do a certain kind of professional development several times, and it's taking kind of a similar perspective on something, we start to wonder, well, if this is something that 5 people are asking us for, are there 50 people out there who might be able to benefit from it? So we did a couple of things on just kind of thinking about what is blended learning and what is personalized learning, and just talking about classroom management in a blended classroom, different things that kept just kind of bubbling to the surface for our teachers. And so that's one of the things that I really like about it, is that it's very needs-based, and it's something that we can push out to a lot of people even when we can't get to their schools, or if they, PD time is so precious, and so we don't always have the opportunity to even get an hour or 2 on their calendar. So we can kind of create these things that can then be shared throughout the school year, and I think that that was really cool for us to be able to start to do that and base it on their needs and their interests, rather than us trying to figure out what we should be doing the topics on.
Yeah, and I like that idea that you're actually focused on things that people have specifically requested, and there are sessions that you have done already, maybe face-to-face, and then you want to think about, how do we turn that session into a conversation that is broader? How do we make that into something that you're actually capturing? And so I think that's actually really valuable. So you're basing it both on needs, but also on experiences that you have had sort of over time. Ken, it looked like you just joined us, maybe while I was doing some of the the screencasting there. But I'm interested in, what are your thoughts around roundtables and hangouts specifically, and what are you looking to kind of get out of this conversation? Oh, are you there, Ken? Almost. Oh no. I still don't have audio. We'll get that sorted in a moment. Fred, from what you were seeing and looking at, what are you thinking about in terms of the, you were talking about doing some office hours and things like that, but what kinds of topics would be most valuable to you and the work that you do if you were going to pull in outside experts and have a conversation with folks?
Well, it just lends a lot of flexibility just in terms of the audience that you can reach. We're a pretty small district here, but our kids are the kids that I would talk to, they may live 20 miles from the school and stuff like that. So I'm just interested to see, just how your tools can work, and your Google Forms and stuff that you were using to try to get things set up is a great idea. I never would have thought of trying to do it, something like that. It's just really fantastic, where you could actually get that information in ahead of time, so you could make some decisions too about where to take possibly the roundtable as you begin the conversations.
Yeah, and I think that concept of sort of thinking it through beforehand, like I think the instantaneous nature of Hangouts makes it so it's like, oh, we're just going to all get together and talk, but I think that it lends itself much more to some facilitation, and I think that's where I want to sort of talk a little bit next on how do you focus a roundtable around the conversation and not necessarily just keep it going over time and just sort of, all right, and now we're at an hour and we haven't really sort of hit any of the questions that we had originally or things like that. So I'm interested, Chris, you've either participated or been a part of different roundtables. What have you seen as sort of the biggest pieces of sort of thinking ahead of time or even in the moment of how to better address specific topics or specific questions?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it just has to do with the people you have in the Hangout. I mean, people who are focused on that question or on those questions are going to be more likely to stay on track and get focused and get through it. So like when we have an ed camp meeting or whatever on Hangouts, we all have a real specific target and focus and it gets done, but then there's also been times where that's not the case. And so it just kind of depends, I think, on who you have in there, which to me seems like the biggest challenge of Hangouts and roundtables is getting people in this room with us, right? Scheduling them and getting people interested and getting people to just kind of take that initial, I don't know what a Hangout is, but I'm still willing to try it. To me, that's where the trick is. You know, is getting people in that first time. And so as I start thinking about working with teachers, what I would do is kind of the same way I got people on Twitter chats, which is essentially just say, you know, come into my classroom and let's do one. I'll be the person who does the, you know, our piece in the chat or whatever, but you guys just watch and see how it works. And just kind of the exposure thing, you know, getting people to come in and watch it once or try it once, and then having some great ideas to run with. And that's another thing too, the ideas. And one of the things, Jessica, that you didn't mention that I watch you and Kevin do all the time is you write stuff down, you know, like with a pencil and paper. And so as we're running around at a conference
You're so
or whatever,
weird like that.
yeah, I know, but it's amazing.
I have a picture of you with paper.
I know. After a week watching Kevin at ISTE, I made him give me one of his little notebooks because it was like, okay, I get it. We were sitting in a restaurant or whatever, and I all of a sudden it became so clear to me about why you guys are running around with these little notebooks and writing things down, because those things that you're writing down are popping back up as Hangout topics, or they're popping back up in conversations on Twitter or whatever. And so I'm trying to make that more of kind of a habit of mine for myself.
I love that you're constantly capturing ideas. But let's come back to that idea of scheduling and inviting. So Ken, it sounded like maybe you had a thought about or a question about scheduling and those kinds of things. Let's see if the audio is working now. Oh, we're so close. I can feel the closeness. I wonder if yeah, if you go into your settings and fool around with that. Yeah, and or take a look at that. Yep. So so I think that's actually one of the things that that I struggled with most before this year. So before this year, I was like, all right, I have to get everybody's schedule to fit, and I have to like put out a doodle poll, and I have to get everybody to sign up on the doodle poll for like this time period and things like that. And that is important if you have very specific people who have to be there. But what I decided for this year and throughout these 15 Hangouts is that I was going to only do it with one other person. I said, if my schedule and one other person's schedule work, the Hangout is a go. And then everybody else was serendipity. So I said, okay, who is one other person who I would want to have a conversation with? And I would, and so I invited that other person. I said, you know, what's a good time period this week? Because I had them staggered every couple of weeks. So I organized with, you know, that one other person, and then I opened it up to everybody else. But that wasn't enough. For the most part, opening it up maybe got one or two other people. It wasn't something that that everybody immediately wanted to be a part of. What I had to continually do was send it out to other people who I knew would be interested and do personal invitations. And people who RSVP'd on the event, then I would invite to be on the video. Like they initially were just going to be viewers. Oh, but you're interested. Let me invite you onto the video portion as well. And so a couple of things. So I want to talk about how I do some of the invitations. But Ken, I can hear you. You are there.
You can hear me now?
Live in person. And so I want to give you a voice. So tell us what you're thinking about.
So yeah, headset issues. So I'm thinking about getting a couple things together, and my issue is getting whether I should just try and get people to agree on a time, or just, you know, say, hey, we're just going to do it this time and go for it. Obviously, if you get a critical mass of people, it's much easier to say, hey, we're doing something in half an hour, as opposed to humming and hawing and never get anything going because we're trying to agree on a schedule. How'd you deal with that?
Yeah, so, and to me, it is about finding that one other person that you can rely on and that you're picking the time with, and then just going. Like,
right, two is enough, and someone's going to get on.
That's exactly right. And so here, let me do a screen share though, and because I do want to talk about sort of the invitation process. And Google changed this a little bit, but you'll notice that I invited very, very few people to this session, and I just wanted to. Okay, so we are screen sharing. So I invited very few people to the session because I want to be able to do this live. But I'm going to invite a whole bunch more people, and I actually have 10 different PLN circles of about 300 people each. So I'm going to select the PLN 1, and let's go with PLN 10. And I'm just going to select those two and invite. And some interesting things happen when you invite that many people. One is they do get notified, and you do get the ability to sort of invite all of those people, and they will show up. Here, I'm just going to refresh the page so you see it. But you'll notice that over here there used to be this message button, and that disappears. You can no longer directly message all of the people in the event that you've invited when you invite that many people. I think it's over 100 that disappears, but you can keep on inviting. And what's great about that is that when more people start to show up in that watching or in the maybe, then what I'll do is I will hover over their names, and I will create a new circle just with those people, so that I can send them quick messages, and I will invite them directly. So what's great about the ability to invite a whole bunch of people is, obviously you get a lot more serendipity that way. Obviously you're going to invite people on Twitter and things like that. But then you start to see, okay, who's interested in this topic? And then I can start to sort of curate from those people who I would like to have on the video. And I'm always, always, always pushing people to the planning document. Right. And so what I'm going to do now is, actually, because we didn't have this before it was created, but I'm going to put this in the chat. And if everybody that's on this video right now will just hop in that link. And what's really amazing is by sharing the planning document, you start to see not only the people that are interested in the topic, but also what questions they have, and that starts to seed a little bit of the conversation. So if you'll actually put your names in that top area, Roundtable members, and like your information, you can type it in, and once you start to see, people who are answering these questions, who are taking part in the conversation, then you start to see, okay, so who else should we be inviting, and how can we invite them to this conversation? The only other things that I would recommend that you do as you're sort of going through the process is on here, when you set up your own Hangout, your Hangout on Air, you want to turn on Q&A, and now they just added that Showcases app. So right next to where it says Start here, there's like a Q&A button before you press Start the first time, and there's now a Showcases, which lets you share links and things like that. If you start that Q&A, then people can actually, even before you go on the air, they can start asking questions, but they can also ask questions throughout the session. And then there's like a third option, and I sometimes do this, but I don't always. I sometimes will record a trailer for the Hangout, and it's only in existence from the time when you set up the event to the time where you go live. And so if you are not interested in sort of that video, being there for only that period of time or something like that, it takes an effort to record that video, the trailer. Don't worry about that. That's not like a requirement, but it is pretty cool when you're like sort of setting it up and saying, this is what it's going to be, and people can decide what it was looking at. And Chris, you have hit upon a really interesting thought. I am currently using Safari. One of the things that I have found is if I have 80 or so tabs open in Chrome, which is pretty typical for me, I have to open a separate browser to do a Hangout, because if I try and do Hangouts, which is really resource intensive, in the same browser that I have my 80 tabs open in, it just crashes and burns. And so typically I will open up Safari just for Hangouts, and then everything else is going on in Chrome. So that's like a little tip there.
Hey Ben, can I jump in for a second?
Please.
So a couple of things that as you were talking about how you share it, it got me thinking about one is I think I've seen Sarah do this really well too, where you're having a conversation with somebody already, because I know a lot of people who are interested in doing their own roundtables, they have their own communities of practice that they're having conversations in, and so you know, like I said, Sarah's really good about if she's in a conversation about gamification with some people, she'll say, oh, hey guys, I'm doing this hangout on Sunday and I'd love if you come. And so I think also in addition to just kind of mass sending it out to people, because I know some people, you know, when their name pops up on Google+, nobody really knows who they are necessarily. It's a little bit different. And so I think kind of go into those communities where you're already going to have residents and you're having really valuable conversations, you're definitely more likely to kind of jump on board and do, someone said earlier, you know, convincing people to do something they've never done before and to get over that fear of being on a hangout. So I think that's a good way to do it. And then also I would recommend if you can get 2 people, one person who's on your video and then one person who's not on the video who can be in the Q&A app asking questions. That was really valuable for us because we found the first one that we did, my teammates and I said, if it's only us, that's okay. We're just going to do it anyway, even if we don't have other people on the panel. But because all 3 of us were in the video, there was no Q&A going on, and so that was kind of hard to, we were sort of fake asking each other questions, and so it was a little more authentic when one of us actually stayed off the video and then was just popping questions into the Q&A. And we actually had people go out into the document and pull the questions that were in the document and pop them into the Q&A ahead of time so we could start addressing those questions. So those were a couple things that definitely helped us out.
I think that kind of mirrors the role of a meeting having a moderator and a secretary and having different people that are doing those roles. I tried to do everything, it just blew up. I couldn't keep track.
Especially when it's your first one, it's intimidating and there's a lot going on and you're trying to manage the technical aspect of the Hangout as well as facilitate the conversation. And you're probably super nervous, like I was super nervous the first few times that I did one. And so, you know, I think it's really helpful when you have, plus it's kind of like you know that those people have your back and that they're going to kind of be there to guide you along if you trip along the way.
I think that's huge. And so there are 2 things that I've heard, right? One is actually that we are sort of mentoring one another and hand-holding with one another, and having people who do that with you makes it a lot easier. But I also think the conversations around almost planting. Right, planting a conversation, because I mean, it is fairly inauthentic to say at this particular time and this particular place we're going to have this conversation and it's going to be amazing. Like that's a very strange idea, and so why not actually ensure that the conversation is amazing? Make sure that there are people there that are going to be interested and engaged. And I think the last thing that you said that's pretty important is saying that it's okay if it's just you, right? Like you should be okay with the idea that this isn't going to be seen by like 4,000 people today, because all of these conversations and the roundtables themselves have a much longer tail than just that moment when they are live. And I think we need to stop thinking about these events as something that I attend when they happen, and much more around how do we use them after they are over? How do we link to them? How do we talk about them as a part of a broader conversation? And even the idea that roundtables are connected together. So, Ken, what are you thinking about with?
So I was thinking that, right, you're talking about how to bring it off after Ben. So obviously you've done a bunch. Are you data geeking and keeping track of who's participating in each ones and who to invite back, and how are you kind of creating a community of all of them together? Since I've been on 2 now, but I'm sure there's way more.
So there are more, but so one of the things that I'm doing is so I do have a spreadsheet of everybody who has ever said yes or maybe. So I just like copy and paste all of those names over, and you know I'm keeping track. But I also have all of the people that have been on roundtables, because one of the great things that Hangouts does is it actually creates a persistent Hangout for everyone who has been on the Hangout. And so if I go into my Hangouts in Google+, I'll see all of the roundtables, and so I just rename them with, and right now I can go in and rename this one that we are all currently on, or actually I think it has to be over for us to do it, but they'll rename this one as the Roundtable, right? And so it creates this persistent chat that we have forever where I can collaborate with each one of you, and I can have that same context. Oh, you remember that time that we talked about X? And I can come back to you and collaborate. Actually, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you all about is an idea that was floated earlier this year, but that I want to come back to, is the idea of having a global roundtable day. And having a day in which everybody who's interested creates their own roundtables at different times during the day, and that obviously we can help support one another in that. But the idea being that maybe throughout the entire day we could have 24 different roundtables or 15 different roundtables, depending on how many different time zones everybody would sort of support one another as we are thinking about, okay, so what are all of the conversations that we are a part of, and how do we bring them together into sort of this more unified conversation? So I'm going to just leave that out there. Like, what does that sound like as a conversation, or as a way of joining these conversations together? And do we need something like that, or can we just have these different parts?
Yes, we need that. Yes, we should do it. Everybody who's on this panel should do at least one.
I was waiting for someone else to jump in.
And I think also the thing that's really exciting to me about that is that I think in some ways it almost lowers the barrier to entry, because it's kind of this idea of saying, during this day we are all in this together and we are all going to just try this thing and we're going to see how it goes, and there will be lots of targeted support for how to do that. But I think that that's really awesome that we could kind of come together as a community of organizers to each do our own thing and support each other.
Nice. Like that a lot. Chris, you've been a little silent. What do you got going?
As far as that goes, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, the personal invitation piece is huge. Getting people to do something like this isn't going to happen because you send them a text or whatever for most folks. And then the other thing is that I think if we were going to do something like that, we need to kind of, I mean, I don't like to define stuff much, but how is that different than like the EdCamp home? And also, if we all were going to go ahead and do something like that, I would say that not only do we need to do that, but we need to make sure that there's at least one or two people sitting right next to the folks who are leading those Hangouts, because it's just more likely to grow that way. Physically, like sitting right next to me, so they can watch me like working the computer and moving through this process, and so they can see what happens on my side when things don't go perfectly, and that it's going to be okay.
I really like that idea of having like a partner in crime.
It's a huge, even for me. I mean, I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing, but when Jessica approached me, I mean, my instant gut reaction was, sure, as long as you're sitting right next to me. I don't even think she finished her sentence. You know what I mean? It was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it as long as you're right there.
Sure. Like getting people to do their first videos, holding their hand beside them is just is so important.
I mean, and if I feel that way, I'm sure that everyone around me is even more so.
Absolutely. So let me ask Fred. I feel like your sort of your entry point is maybe a little bit different than some of the other folks on the panel here. What would you need in order to take a part in that kind of an experience, that kind of day?
Well, I'm not anywhere near your folks' level. I'm an old guy that likes this kind of stuff a lot and sees a lot of possibilities in it. So I honestly, I've participated in a couple of Hangouts, but it's been like, hey, this is a cool tool. And I'd got on to you actually through another individual when I was at the Sloan conference earlier in July, and it was like, then I saw this and I just jumped on this particular Hangout. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean? I just
I clicked a link and here I am.
Yeah, that is pretty much it. It was on my Google Calendar. It's like, hey, yeah, whatever. Let's go see what's going on. I didn't want to work for this hour anyway. But I just think that there is a ton of capacity here that we don't really have anyone around here that's, I don't want to say brave enough because we have that, but that knows what's out there that can just give me that little nudge and roll me down that hill because I'm on top of the hill. I just need to be pushed down it a little bit somehow, and to find the resources out there for that. I know they're there, but I don't know where they are. So I mean, I think stuff like this can be tremendously helpful, and just, you know, I don't know how you did this or how in the hell I got onto your conversation. Really, it's cool. It's fun.
So I like that idea of sort of the rolling down the hill and sort of that we could provide that nudge or the push of making that you know, that we could provide the momentum for one another. I think that's actually pretty huge. So so when we're looking at sort of helping to support one another, I've heard, you know, we need people who are physically there who can support one another. We need a structure, and you were talking a little bit about how is this different than EdCamp Home, and I think EdCamp Home is something that is entirely you know, sort of on the fly, and the idea is that that actually it's more presentation based and more like about the screen share and about, you know, those kinds of things, versus what I think roundtables are about. And although we've done a little bit of screen sharing here, roundtables are more about the conversation and the people and about helping one another to do something great, right? And so my thought would be, how can we then create that structure of support and those kinds of things? So just like every other roundtable, I'm presenting a challenge to all of us, right? Is that we support one another in the creation of further roundtables, and support one another in the ability to maybe have a partner in crime, right? Whether it's the person that's just asking questions on the Q&A, or it is the person who is sitting right next to you if you have someone local, and then, you know, thinking about where does this exist within our work. Fred, you were saying, you know, you didn't want to work for this hour, and you wanted to jump on, but you know, I actually think that this is actually probably some of the more productive things that we can be doing is push. Sorry.
This is work.
Right. And I think this is sort of the way in which we work now. This is sort of the modern way of working, is getting a lot of outside expertise and collaborating with folks. So Sarah, you had put a couple of things over into the chat here. What are you thinking about this challenge and how you're going to challenge yourself with this?
I love this idea to try to get more people to connect regarding, through Google Hangouts on Air. And we actually started up a Google Educator group for the DC metro area, but we're having different people from all over come and take part in it. And a lot of you on the panel are part of it, so thank you for that. But next week, well, first of all, let me backtrack and say that we've been gamifying it to have different challenges to extend the engagement. And next week, our challenge is going to revolve around Google Hangouts on Air and creating, creating our own. So that's going to be one way that I'm trying to kind of reach out to other educators and let them know about this fantastic opportunity. So next week, one of our challenges will be for everyone to create like either a roundtable or a something, an interactive tutorial using Google Hangouts on Air. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
How often are the challenges? Is that every week?
Every week, yeah. The first week was all about gamification, and we did that on the Voxer group, and we kind of gamified the structure of the GEG, and we're going to keep with that point system in the GEG, but next week we're going to be talking about flipped learning and Google Hangouts, and there'll be other challenges, other themes like down the line.
I gotta say, I can't even handle the level of amazing conversation that's happening on that Voxer. Like, I try and listen on the way to work and the way home, and I still can't get caught up. Like, there is that much activity, that much conversation, that much amazing ideas that are being shared. And so, you've started something pretty amazing within that space, but I think that it goes the same way within these conversations, right? It's like, I want to choose a topic, I want to make that topic relevant to as many people as possible, and I want to share it. And so to me, that is, that's the direction we're headed. and that's where we want to go. So we've only got a couple more minutes, but I'm going to leave everybody with the ability to sort of say their final words around, what is it that you would like to do next? Are you going to start a roundtable, and if so, what's the topic? What are you going to submit? And Sarah, I would just make sure that everybody has that link to the Create Roundtable bit.ly link so that they can do that if they want to, and it'll walk them through and everything like that. But Chris, I'm going to start with you. What's your next step?
My next step is to sit down next to Jessica and plan. I think we talked about a couple different ones. So our plan was that she would sit next to me and do one, and then I would try one on my own. And so, really the next step for me is just kind of trying to make that happen.
Nice.
I have some questions for you, Ben, that not really right now, but the technical piece is like how you get it to drop into the calendar and little bits and things like that are interesting to me too.
Yes. Well, so if you want to set up your own system that's like separate from the Roundtable calendar and things like that, like
I'm perfectly happy stealing yours.
Oh. So yes, we could definitely talk through that and some of those components.
So
Fred, what's your next?
Roundtable calendar.
What's that?
It's a shared calendar. What shared calendar is it going into?
So it's going into the Roundtable calendar. Where did I go?
Did you just have like wide open for anybody to share or what?
Correct.
Okay, that's cool. You don't have to show me it. I get it.
All right.
So it's your own private calendar.
Screen share or whatever. But Fred, what's your next step?
I don't know. I mean, I just went Google Hangouts on there just to do some more research in terms of how I could potentially use this with our people, because we're at a real low level compared to a lot of you other folks. So we've got a lot of the learning curve is pretty steep, and we're entry level. So we're just going to see kind of what takes place, but we're going to have some fun with this in the fall, I have a feeling.
All right, Fred, I hope that you reach out to each of us and you say, how did you do that thing? And you say, this is the cool thing that I'm doing, and that you definitely continue to collaborate with us.
Will do.
All right, Jess, what's your next step?
I have two. One is to help Chris follow through with his commitment, and two is I want to kind of revisit some roundtables that we had thought about doing for our school sites, and I know they're ramping up for a new school year and thinking about a lot of different things right now, and so I want to kind of think about what would be the most helpful things for them right now, and kind of put myself in their shoes because I was there last year. Think about what would have been nice for me to have, that I could go and watch in the midst of all the chaos of a new school year.
Love that. Yep. Ken, what's your next step?
So I'm in Mexico at a large university system, 100,000 students, 30-something campuses across 25 cities. So one of our big topics is we have so many people doing the same things in different places, and we're not talking to each other. And I really want to promote.
I don't know what that's like. We don't have any overlap.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. So.
But we're all one university, but nobody talks with each other, and it's true. Even just across the hall, we don't talk to each other. That's a different issue. So my big thing is getting people to communicate, and so I want to use Hangouts on air, and get them communicating. People in the math area, or people in chemistry or physics or whatever, to get them together and talking about what they're doing.
I love that. All right, Sarah, what do you got?
Okay, well, just piggybacking on what Ken just said, in terms of getting people to collaborate, that's definitely one great thing that I want to do. And also piggybacking off of what Jessica said when you talked about school, I was thinking, how cool would it be to have like a panel of teachers at the school, like maybe having a round table on something, and how cool would it be to have the kids also maybe having their own round tables? Like we just we're a Google Apps for Education school, but I think the plus was turned off for students, but now with the newest developments, now that it's available to anybody with Google Apps, then that's cool.
Yep.
Anybody
You read
can be
my
on Google
mind,
Plus?
Sarah.
What?
Yeah, well, I think I saw that.
I'll find that link and post it in the page. But any Google Apps can now do this, and up to 15 people now.
Yeah, you don't have to have Google Plus to do Hangouts now, which is just fun.
So my fifth graders can do Hangouts?
What's that?
My fifth graders can do it?
In theory, yes.
I'll dig out that link.
So, pretty amazing stuff. So I really appreciate everybody's time today and the conversation itself. Sounds like we all are going to have some really great next steps. And if you haven't added yourself to the document, the one that we created just for this session, please do so, because it's a really great resource that we will have, you know, over time, that people can go to if they watch this video later and those kinds of things. And then Jess just put in I think the link to the Hangout how-to document that we've been creating for the last little while, that walks you through, and Fred, I think specifically for your use case, might be valuable. It walks you through how to do the creation, how to do some of the things within a Hangout, and things like that. So it's a little bit more of a walkthrough, and you don't have to rewatch this video to get all that stuff. But I really appreciate everybody's time, and happy roundtabling.
Thanks, y'all.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, man.
All right, bye-bye.